We're in the Mishnah on the bottom of Chav Beis Amud Beis. This is a Mishnah we had quoted in the beginning of this Perek. It brings different opinions over here, benegay to the kula and the heter that Chachamim said regarding a well in the middle of the way, and you put up the partitions in the corners. In what case they made this heter? Zok the Mishnah, echad boir harabim, whether it's a hole that has water in it, ube'er harabim, whether it's a well that's for the rabim, so it has to be for a rabim, where there's many people that are using this. Ube'er yachid, even a be'er that's made for a yachid, oisen lahen passen. You could use this heter of putting up the passen at the corners. Aval a boir yachid, but when it comes to a boir, it's not a well water, it's just a hole with water, and it's for a yachid. So then you're going to have a proper mechitza of 10 tfachim around it. So the point over here is, Rashi explains that when it comes to a boir, which is gathering rainwater, it's possible that it should dry up, and after it dries up, there won't be any heter to carry, and someone might continue carrying there. So therefore there's a reason to be mechalek between a boir and a be'er. And the reason to be mechalek between a rabim and a yachid, as Rashi says, is because a rabim, people are reminding each other. Mit Kriya Hadadi, we had this before when we get to the Lechi and the Mavoi, that many people remind each other. By a Yachid, you don't have many people to remind each other. So this is the first opinion of the Mishnah, Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says, Ein oisen pasin, ela lebe'er harabim bilvad. The heter of the pasim is for a be'er and a rabim. You have to have both milas. It has to be a be'er and not a boir, and it has to be made for a rabim and not for a yachid. L'shar and all the other examples of a be'er of a yachid or a boir of a rabim even, oisen chagura gevaya astoret tvachim. So then you can make a fence. What kind of fence do you make? As we learned before, you put up these ropes that go around, and there's less than 3 tvachim between them, so it's lavud and it's tall 10 tvachim. That would be good enough, which is considered to be a mechitza. It's a flimsy mechitza, but it's a good mechitza. You can't rely just on the partitions in the corners. Sagt die Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Halachik Rav Yehuda ben Bava. We paskin like Rav Yehuda ben Bava in our Mishnah, which is machmer, that you have to have both advantages of be'er and rabim. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Another statement he said in the name of Shmuel, Loihutru pase berois elo be'er ma'im chayim bilvat. The het of pase berois is only with a be'er ma'im chayim, well water, not rainwater. So the Gemara now says, I need both of these statements to say that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda ben Bava, and that the halacha is that it works only for a be'er. Which l'chayre, it's extra. Rav Yehuda ben Bava said that it's only for a be'er. So why is he saying this beferish? If you would have just said that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda ben Bava, I would have thought the Rabbim, Rav Yehuda ben Bava holds the main point is that it has to be of a Rabbim, va'afilu mechunasen. And even if it's a boir which is gathering rainwater, v'hai diktoni be'er arabim, this that he says the lashon of be'er arabim, la fukim mit Rav Akiva. His main point was not to focus on the word be'er. His main point was to argue on Rav Akiva. Rav Akiva said that even a boir yachid, so he says no, that has to be of a rabim. What I would have thought that maybe be'er is lav dafke, it could be even a boir. So therefore he has to kamash malan hutru pasibirois el be'er ma'im chayim. So therefore you have to spell out beferish that the heter is only if it's a be'er. V'yashmina be'er ma'im chayim. On the other hand, if it would have said be'er ma'im chayim havamina loishna de rabim v'loishna de yachid. Once it's well water, it doesn't make a difference if it belongs to the public or if it's private. Kamash malan halacha Rav Yehuda ben Bava. So therefore he says that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda ben Bava, that we're machmer, that has to have both advantages. It has to be a be'er and has to be a varabim in order to apply this kula. Zok the Mishnah. So now we begin sort of a new subject, which was mentioned before. It's mentioned in the first Mishnah of this Perek, where we talk about a karfif. A karfif is an open, big area, which is not made for people to live there usually. And Chachamim put a certain limitation how large a Rosh Hashanah could be, and you should still be allowed to carry inside of it. Even if Minat Torah, it's 100% a Rosh Hashanah. But because it's so big and nobody lives there, and it looks like a Rosh Hashanah, if you're going to be allowed to carry there, a person might think that you can carry in a Rosh Hashanah. So there's all kinds of opinions here in the Mishnah, but you get to in which case Chachamim applied their gzeira, the measurement of the size of how large this place is. Another halacha Rav Yehuda ben Bava said, Hagina, garden, v'hakarfif. A karfif is like an open area outside of a city, like a storage area or like an open area, very large open area, like a park. Shein shivim amma v'shirayim al shivim amma v'shirayim. And the size of this place is a square of 70 amas and a fraction, and 70 amas and a fraction. The exact size is actually 70 amas and 4 tfachim, by 70 amas and 4 tfachim. What's the source of this measurement? So as we'll see in the Gemara, I mentioned this before already, that this is learned from the Mishkan. The size of the chutzah of the Mishkan was 100 amas by 50 amas. If you take 100 amas by 50 amas and you square it out, it comes out to be 70 amas and a fraction, which is 4 tfachim, and 70 amas and 4 tfachim. Okay, now it actually comes out to be a drop more, as the Gemara will point out. It's 70 amas and 4 tfachim plus another finger and a little bit. If you make the exact cheshbon, Rashi Namid Beitz makes the exact cheshbon. If you make the cheshbon, that's what it comes out. When you take this rectangular space and square it out, that's the shear. So this is where they took it from, that this is the maximum size of a Rishus HaYachid. So again, what's the Lashon of Rabbi Yehuda here? Shen shivim amma v'shirayim, al shivim amma v'shirayim, hamukaf is geder, has a wall around it, gavaya asara tvachim, 10 tvachim high, metaltlim b'toicha. You could carry inside of this space. Or bulvad sheyehei ba shemeira oy beis dira. It has to have somebody that's there inside. He's there as a guard. He has like a hut that he lives inside to guard in the garden outside, or a beis dira, or a house inside of it. Or should take smucha le'ir, or should be close to a city. If it's close enough to a city, so people from the city go there more often. It's a machlekes rishayim, how close it has to be to the city.
I thought the guard hut doesn't work.
Wait. This is Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava's opinion. There's a few opinions about this. So if what?
No.
What mechitzas?
Close no.
This area has a mechitza gevaya asara tvachim. So it has to be smucha le'ir. So people come there more often. Some say it has to be within the tchum of 2,000 amas, and some say that it has to be as close as this measurement itself that we're mentioning here, 70 amas and a shirayim. That's how close it has to be to the city. So the point is, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava holds that this gzeira of Chazal, that an area that's enclosed like a Rishus HaYachid might be confused and be like a Rishus HaRabim, that includes even a place that's as large as the way it was in the Mishkan and even smaller. When he says there's Shivim Amma V'Shirayim, so he means Shivim Amma V'Shirayim or less. An area that's Shivim Amma V'Shirayim or less, you're allowed to carry there only if there's some kind of a person lives there in some way, whether he lives there, whether he comes there often because it's near the city. What's if it's larger than this amount, which is larger than the way it was in the Chutz of the Mishkan? So then, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava's shitta is, it's not going to help even if someone lives there. That's not going to help. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be allowed to carry there. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava is very machmer. So the Mishnah weiter. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, afile ein ba elo boir v'shiach u'mayre metaltlim b'soicha. This space of Shivim Amma V'Shirayim, which is as large as the Mishkan, and smaller. Again, this is the maximum, but this space and smaller, you don't have to have someone that actually lives there or goes there often, even if it's just a boir, shiach, a mayre there, a pit, or a cave that a person goes there, that's enough. That's the minimum, whatever kind of a use a person has there, however often, that's enough for it to be allowed to carry there. Rabbi Akiva says, no. If it's up to this amount of Shivim Amma V'Shirayim and less, then then even if it's completely empty and no one goes there, it's a garden, it's a place that people have no use over there, like a Bayeshech, a Mayra, personal use that they go there. It's an open area like a garden or a park. So then, metaltlim b'seicha, you're allowed to be metaltlim. But a bulvad, sheyehei ba shivim amma v'shirayim al shiva amma v'shirayim. But this is only if the measurement of this space is this maximum of 70 and shirayim, 70 and a fraction, which is like the chutzah of the Mishkan. What's if it's more than that? If it's more than that, then Chachamim made their gzeira that only if someone is living there, you can carry there. Okay, so that's Rabbi Akiva's shitta. And this is the shitta that we've seen before in the first Mishnah. This is the shitta that we paskin like. That if it's the size of the Mishkan or smaller, then there's no issue b'chlal. You don't have to look if someone lives there or not. If it's larger than the Mishkan, then it's going to make a difference if someone lives there or not. So the Mishnah weiter, Rabbi Eliezer Eimer, another opinion. Im hoisa arka yeser al rochba afila ama. If the way this space is designed is that the length of the space is more than the width, even one amma, and we're talking over here in a case where it's 70 amma and shirayim, okay? Then ein metaltel b'seicha. Then you're not allowed to carry inside of it. So the gzeira of Chazal is only in a case where it's not exactly square. Yeah, the Gemara will explain this. The Gemara explains it's not. When you look in the Pashto Pshat of the Mishnah, it sounds like that even if it's mamish a drop longer than the width, and it's not exactly square, then the Gzeira of Chazal will apply if it's this size of a base sasayim, like in the Mishkan. Rabbi Yosi says, Afila arka pishnayim berachba. If it's double the size and the length and the width, metal l'misaycha you could carry inside of it. In other words, like it was in the Mishkan, 100 amas by 50 amas, then there's no problem, you can carry inside of it. If it's larger than that, if it's larger than 100 amas than 50 amas, then it's going to be a problem. But if it's 100 by 50 amas, then it's not a problem. Amar Rabbi Loi said, Shamaiti mi Rabbi Lazar. I heard from Rabbi Lazar, Afili hike base kur, an area even as large as a base kur, which is 30 saw. Okay, a very large place, and nobody lives there. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. You can carry there. So Rabbi Lazar holds it could be very, very big, and Chacham did not make their Gzeira. Larger than a base core, then the Gzeira of Chacham will apply. Another kula I heard in the name of Rabbi Lazar. This is a different halacha. We're going to learn more about this in the halachas of Eiruvin Chatzeris, which comes much later in Masechta Eiruvin, and that is that what happens in a chotzer where you have a Erev Chatzeris? Everybody has to participate in the Erev Chatzeris. If one person is not mishtatev in the Erev Chatzeris, then it's a problem. But he said, Shamaite mimenu anshe chotzer sheshachach echad men v'loy Erev beisai. One person was not mishtatev in the Erev Chatzeris, so there's another eitzah that you could do even on Shabbos itself. He's mevatel his reshus to everybody else. He says, I'm mevatel my reshus, that I'm not the use of my reshus does not belong to me. I'm mevatel my house to everybody else. So then, what's going to be the halacha? He's not allowed to take in and out anything from his own house, because if he does so then it's not a bittul. He's using his own house as a private place. Aval lehem mutter. Everybody else will be allowed to carry in the chotzer and be allowed to carry from his house into the chotzer if he was mevatel his house.
Why is he worse than them?
Because he's the one that had to relinquish his own control and his own bailos and his reshus. Yeah. We'll see more about this in the Gemara. V'chein shamaiti mimenu, another kula that I heard from Rabbi Lazar, which is a completely different Inyan. Sheyotzim ba'arkebulin bePesach. Yotzif with marer on Pesach with arkebulin. Arkebulin is like this vine that grows on a palm tree, which is very bitter, like marer. So yotzif with this on Pesach. And the others don't agree to Rabbi Lazar and this thing, but he holds you yaitz with this. V'chazarti al kol talmid of Rabbi Loi says, I heard this in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Then I asked all of his talmidim. I wanted to see, did anyone else hear this in the name of Rabbi Lazar? I didn't find anyone else that heard the same thing in the name of Rabbi Lazar. These three kulas over here, no one else could back up the same inyan.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the Mara issue?
We'll see. The Gemara will explain. We'll see. So the Gemara, so the Gemara starts with the first word in the Mishnah. It says va'oid. Va'oid amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. What's the va'oid? Va'oid always means a continuation. What is this? My tana diktani va'oid. What is the reason it says va'oid, that it's a continuation to before? Because in the previous Mishnah was also Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. And there he said a chumrah. What was this chumrah? Regarding the partitions by the pasim, that it has to be the pasim by the be'er. It must be dafka be'er shel rabim. So he said one chumrah, and now v'katani achriti, and now he's saying another chumrah. Mishamachi katani v'oit, and therefore he's saying over here v'oit. Frak Gemara, if that's the case, so why doesn't it say va'oid by Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda, the tana lechadu l'chumra, the katana yachriti. Rabbi Yehuda also says one chumra, and now he's saying a second chumra. So why don't we say va'oid? So where did we have one chumra that Rabbi Yehuda said before in the beginning of the Perek? The first Mishnah on the Perek, Rabbi Yehuda said a chumra that the pasan that you put around the be'er could only be up to Beis Hasayim. Not more. The Chachamim argued on him afterwards. The Chachamim said no, it could be even more than Beis Hasayim, and the Chachamim brought an example of a Gina and a Karfer where someone lives there, and it could be even larger. But Rabbi Yehuda said one Chumrah in the first Mishnah, and over here Rabbi Yehuda as well is saying a Chumrah. So why doesn't it say V'oid b'negei to Rabbi Yehuda? V'loi katani V'oid, regarding Rabbi Yehuda it does not say V'oid. So the Gemara answers, Chasam afsakur Rabbanon. The opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, there was an interruption. because Rabbanan argued with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbanan answered back Rabbi Yehuda, and then it brings a second opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So because there was an interruption, so therefore it doesn't say v'hoid. Hacha lo yafsaku Rabbanan. Here there was no interruption of the Rabbanan answering back. You have Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava in the previous Mishnah, and right afterwards, v'oid am Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. It's mamash a direct hamshach. That's why it says v'oid. Fragt the Gemara v'chol heiche the afsaku Rabbanan loikatani v'oid. And any time there's an opinion that's brought, and then that same Manda Omar continues and says something else, and there's a break in between of another opinion, it doesn't use the term va'oid. The Gemara brings an example in a Mishnah where it does. V'ha Rabbi Eliezer the Sukkah, this Rabbi Eliezer in the second Perek of Sukkah, the Afsaku Rabbanon over there. There's a hefsek of the words of the Rabbanon, the Katani va'oid, and there it does say va'oid. Rashi over here brings what the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is over there. The first opinion of Rabbi Eliezer there is that a person is obligated on the whole yontiv of Sukkah 7 days to eat 14 sudas. You have to eat 2 sudas a day. It's the first thing Rabbi Eliezer says. Then v'oidam Rabbi Eliezer, that someone that didn't eat in the Sukkah the first night of yontiv, he has to be mashlim and eat in the last night of Sukkah in the Sukkah. And in between, you have the opinion of the Rabbanan that say that you don't have to eat 14 sudas in the whole Sukkahs, and still it uses the term v'oid. So the Gemara answers there's a difference. Hasam b'milsei hudav sakua. Over there, the Rabbanan are responding to Rabbi Eliezer in what he was talking about. They're not bringing up anything else. So therefore, it's not such a big hefsek in their words that they're arguing on what he was speaking about. Hacha b'milsa achriti av sakua. Over here, Rabbi Yehuda was talking about pasibei rois, how large the space could be. Rabbanan are answering back, and they bring up a of a karfif and a gina. They're answering him back and bringing up a different subject. And then Rabbi Yehuda speaks again. So because it's not only that it was a break of the Rabbanan speaking, but the Rabbanan brought up a different subject, therefore over here the Mishnah doesn't use the term va'oid.
Basic grammar.
Huh?
Sounds like basic grammar.
Of how you, it's not only grammar, how you present halachas, or how you structure a conversation or a statement. Yeah, Chanami, okay. So the opinion of the Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva, which we paskin like is, if it's up to the size of 70 yamas and a fraction, the square of 70 yamas and a fraction, so then you can carry there, even if no one lives there, not a problem. Only if it's more than that, which is larger than the way it was in the Mishkan, then it has to be a place where someone lives there, otherwise you can't carry there. Gzeira Chachamim. What Rabbi Akiva is saying here is the same opinion that we had in the beginning of the Masechta in the first Mishnah, which is the Tanakama. Over there he said that if it's a Beis Hasayim, which if you square it out, the Beis Hasayim is 70 Amos and Shirayim, that's the maximum size that you're allowed to carry, and not more. That's exactly what Rabbi Akiva is saying. And for the Gemara, Ike beinayu dovamut. The difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva is a very small amount. What's this small amount? So the Gemara brings the Braisa. The Tanya will learn in the Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda oime dovamut yesh al shivim ama v'shirayim. There is actually another tiny additional amount, more than the shivim ama v'shirayim, v'leinasna chachamim by shir. And the chachamim did not bother to be so specific and spell out this shir. Okay, what's that other shir? So you can learn the Rashi. Rashi goes through the cheshbon, but basically the bottom line is if you take 100 by 50 yamas and you square it out, it comes out to be 70 yamas v'shirayim, which as I mentioned is 4 tvachim, and another finger size of a finger, and a drop more actually, even a little bit, a drop more than another finger. So that's this davamut that we're talking about over here, which is an additional space that the Tanakama held by. The Tanakama said the shear of Beis Hasayim. When you take a shear of Beis Hasayim and you square it out, it's going to be shivim ama v'shirayim and another davamut. Mashenke Rabbi Akiva is dropping that davamut. Rabbi Akiva says no, Chachamim rounded it out to shivim ama v'shirayim, and we don't include this davamut. That's the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva.
Is it ever negea?
If you measure it exactly, and it's exactly that amount, so there could be an nafkamina. It's going to be a very seldom case how that nafkamina will come up, but this is the whole nafkamina, whether you pay attention to this davamut or not. Sagt the Gemara weiter. The Kama Shir Sasayim. What in the Kama Shir Sasayim? What's the Shir of Sasayim? Kechatzera Mishkan. The Shir is like what it says in the Mishkan. Minoan Emili. From where do I know that the Shir is like what it says in the Mishkan? Amar Rav Yehuda, that you square it out. In other words, the point of the Gemara is, from where do you know that you take the shear of the Mishkan and you square it out to 70 amas and shirayim by 70 amas and shirayim, and not exactly the way it was in the Mishkan, which is 100 amas by 50 amas. Amar Rav Yehuda Amakra, because the pasuk says, Oirech hachatzer me'eh b'ama. The length is 100 amas, and v'rachav chamishim b'chamishim, and the width is 50 in 50. So you have an extra word here, b'chamishim. It should have just said, like in the length, it says it's 100 amas long. It should have said that the width is 50. What is this word b'chamishim doing here? Amra Taira. What the Taira is saying is, Toil chamishim v'savev chamishim. When you have the length of 100 amas, take that extra, so if it would be square, it would be 50 by 50. Now you have that extra 50 amas in the length, take that 50 amas in the length and place it around the 50 amas and create a square with this extra 50 amas. And you create that square, you come to 70 amas for shirayim, which is 70 amas and 4 tfachim and a little bit more than another finger. That's the source of this extra word b'chamishim here in the pasuk. Amra Torah tel chamishim v'savev chamishim. Now the Gemara asks, Pashtei dekra b'mai ksiv. What's the simple pshat of the pasuk? Why does it add this word b'chamishim? Amar Abaye says the pashut pshat of the pasuk is coming to tell you where you should put the Mishkan in the Chatzar. Ha made Mishkan al sfas chamishim. You have to put the Mishkan at the beginning of the back 50 amas. In other words, you keep the front 50 amas empty, and then you put the Mishkan at the second 50 amas. That's b'chamishim in the second 50 amas. Kidei sheyeh chamishim ama lefanov. It has 50 amas empty in front of it. Ve'esrim ama l'chol ruach v'ruach. And then you position the Mishkan in such a place that it's going to be 20 amas on each side of the Mishkan. You can take a look. They probably have a picture over here where they have it for you. Which daf are we on over here? Which picture is it in? Kuf Petes. In picture Kuf Petes, so the Mishkan itself was 30 amas long and 10 amas wide. So if you put a Mishkan right in the center of this second 50 amas, you're going to have 20 amas in the back, 20 amas on both sides. That's what we're talking about. L'chol ruach, you're going to have 20 amas. B'chamishim. What? In the second space of 50 amas. Don't put it in the center of the 100 amas, but put it in the that l'chayri you don't see clearly from the pasuk, but that's where it was put. It was centered. It was centered in this 50 amas. The main thing you see in the pasuk is that the first 50 amas is empty. You put it in the second space of 50 amas. Okay, what did it say in the Mishnah? Rabbi Eliezer says that the gzeira of the Chachamim regarding this space is if it's 1 amma, if in the length it's 1 amma, it's a space that's base asayim like the Mishkan, but the gzeira applies if it's 1 amma longer than the width. Fragt the Gemara, but in Abraisa we learned not so. That if in its length it's double the size of the width, afila amma achas, even 1 amma, then you can't carry in it. In other words, what Rabbi Eliezer is saying in the Braisa is, if it's up to 100 amas by 50 amas, like it was in the Mishkan, then it's okay. If it's only 1 amma larger, then it's a problem. In our Mishnah, it's mashma that he was saying that even in a square, and it was just 1 amma longer. So the Gemara answers, that our Mishnah means the same thing. Kitnan nami masnisin. What's the pshat in our Mishnah? Yeser al pishnayim berachba tnan. He meant to say in our Mishnah that if it's 1 amma longer than this length of the way it was in the Mishkan, which is 100 by 50. He didn't mean that if it's 1 amma longer than the actual width. He meant longer than the 100 ammas. Then it's going to be a problem. Frag the Gemara, if that's what Rabbi Eliezer means to say, Haine Rabbi Yosi. That's exactly what Rabbi Yosi said in the Mishnah. So what's the difference? Rabbi Yosi's lashon was, Afila arka pishnayim berachba metaltlim b'saycha, as long as it's not more than pishnayim, 100 by 50. Now we're saying that Rabbi Eliezer says the same thing, that it could be 100 by 50 and not 1 amma more. And for the Gemara, ikke beinayu ribua the rivua rabbanan. The difference is the way Chachamim said that you take this space of the chatzar of the Mishkan, that's 100 by 50, and then you make it into a square, 70 amas and shirayim by 70 amas of shirayim. So the question is, this is the Rashi's pshat in the Gemara, what's a better option? L'chatchila, if a person wants to put up partitions, or wants to put, let's say a person is stuck in a bika somewhere before Shabbos, and he has to put up a mechitza. What kind of a mechitza should he put up? Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is you can make it 100 amas by 50 amas. There's no reason to square it out. There's no maila in making it square. Even if you make it longer than wider, it's fine. Even lechatchila. Mashenken, Rabbi Yossi's opinion is lechatchila, when you're putting up gates, put it up in a way that it should be square. Because that's less similar to Rosh Hashanah. When something's very long, so then it looks more similar to Rosh Hashanah. L'chatchila, you should try to make it square. If you can't make it square, then you can make it longer than wider, as long as it's not double, it's not more than double the size and the length like it was in the Mishkan. So Rashi says, Yimidayik the Lashon of Rabbi Yossi says, Afila arka pishnayim, then it's going to be good afila. But be'etzem, Rabbi Yossi holds that l'chatchila you should try to make it square. Mashenken, according to Rabbi Eliezer, no, even l'chatchila there's no inyan to make it square. You can make it longer than wider as long as it's not larger than the way it was in the Mishkan. That's enough community between them. Rabbi Yossi mechulu sagt the Gemara itme am Rabbi Yosef am Rabbi Yudah mashmul halachik Rabbi Yossi. We paskin like Rabbi Yossi that it could be like the Mishkan, 100 by 50 amis, but not more. Rabbi Omar, Shmuel, Halachem. I'm sorry, Rabbi Omar, Rabbi Yehuda, Omar, Shmuel, Halachik, Rabbi Akiva. We paskin like Rabbi Akiva. That what did Rabbi Akiva say? The Gemara is going to explain now what's the two details that we see from Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Akiva. There are two kulas that we take from them. The point over here was that he wanted to say two kulas that we take out from the opinions of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Akiva. And we need both of them. Even though in the Mishnah it seems that Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Akiva are saying basically the same thing. If we would say the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, I would think this that Rabbi Yossi says that it could be up to 150 amas, 100 by 50 amas. It could, but you have to have someone that's living there. You have to have at least a person that lives there in a hut as a guard. So therefore he says halacha like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said up to the size you don't need anybody living there. On the other hand, if I would say the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, I would think maybe according to Rabbi Akiva, it's only if it's square. If it's square, then it's not similar to Rosh Hashanah, but if it's long and narrow, so then I would think that then it's not allowed. Rabbi Akiva was speaking about Shivim Amma V'Shirayim. That was Rabbi Akiva was talking about. So I would think maybe if it's long and narrow, you don't apply that. Kamash Malam, halacha Rabbi Yossi. So therefore we say the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that even if it's long, 100 amas long and 50 amas wide, we still apply the same kula. Now the Gemara brings another halacha b'nigeya to a karfif. Okay, so like as we said, a karfif is a place that is usually like a garden or open area and nobody lives there. So now the Gemara is going to discuss a place where is partially a garden and partially not planted. Karfif shu yesem ibeis asayim. So you have this open area. It's not open actually; it's enclosed by walls, but it's an area that's karfif that's more than a beis asayim. Shehukaf ledira. It was actually a chatchila made with a dira, with a chotzer, with a house that's open to it. Nizra rubai. Most of it was planted with vegetables. So hareyu kegina. So because most of this area was planted with vegetables, so it becomes like a garden. Va'aser, and you're not allowed to carry in it. This is the place where Chachamim were geyser that it's going to be like a karfif. And even if the chiddush here is, even if you have a house that's open to it, but now that most of it is planted and it's more than beis asayim planted, so now people don't live there, people don't walk there. It's not hukaf ledira at all, and therefore Chachamim's gzeira not to carry there applies. Not tarubai. If you plant it mostly with trees, then areo kachatzer, it's going to be like a regular courtyard of a house, mutter, and you're allowed to carry in it. When you plant trees, a person still goes there. It's still a place where a person can walk, you can sit under the shade of a tree. If it's in a garden, that's not a place where a person walks and sits down there and lives there. Nizra rubai. So now the Gemara goes back to what it said here in this brayse, the first part of the brayse, that if most of it was planted vegetables, like a garden, so then it said it was aser. Omer Avunu b'rei Rav Yeshua lo yamaron elo yoser mi beis asayim. This area that was actually planted as a garden is already more than a beis asayim. Avol beis asayim mutter. If the area that was planted is only up to a beis asayim, then it's allowed. Okay, so you have a garden that's larger than a beis asayim, much larger than a beis asayim. So if that area that was planted as a garden is in itself more than a beis asayim, even if the remainder that was not planted is there. It's all in the same chatzah. It's in the same area. So then you're allowed to you're not allowed to carry there. Again, if what you planted is more than Beis Hasayim, then you're not allowed to carry in the entire area, even in the area that you did not plant. If that area that you planted is only up to Beis Hasayim, then you're allowed to carry in the rest of the space. Sagt the Gemara, Keman. According to who does this go? Rab Shimon. This follows the opinion of Rab Shimon. Now, the point the Gemara is going to discuss over here is, this person took his chatzar and he sort of divided it into two. There's a part of it that he's using now as a garden, he planted vegetables, and then there's another part that he did not plant, that is just being used as a regular chatzar. So it's sort of it's divided into two different spaces. So what Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua is saying is that if the place that he planted is up to Beis Hasayim, you're allowed to carry from that place into the rest of the chatzar. This follows the opinion of Rab Shimon. What did Rab Shimon say? That now Rab Shimon echad gagois, you have roofs, vechad chatzeros, you have courtyards, vechad karfifos, which is what we're talking about over here. Rishus achas hein lekelim sheshafsu b'soichan. You have kelim that at the beginning of the Shabbos was in one chatzar, you could take it from one chatzar to another chatzar, from one roof to another roof. Rab Shimon's opinion is that if you want to carry from one chatzar to another chatzar on Shabbos, it's not a problem. You can't carry from a house to a chatzar, or you can't carry kelim that were in a house and now you brought them out into a chatzar on Shabbos, then you can't carry them to another chatzar. But from one chatzar to another, from one roof to another, if it was lachatchila outside when Shabbos came in, that's not a problem. So the Gemara is applying the same thing over here. You have now this chatzar, part of it is a garden, part of it is a chatzar, so it's like two separate, it's like two chatzeris. And still we're saying you can carry from one to another. It's not a problem. That's the opinion of Rab Shimon. Frek the Gemara Rab Shimon nami, but even according to Rab Shimon, kiven the nizra rubai, of if most of this area was planted as a garden, hava hu miyute batle legabe ruba. The area which you did not plant is a miyut. If it's a miyut, it shouldn't be considered to be like another chatzar. It should be bottled to the rest of it. And if so, v'havale karfif yesimi beis hasayim v'asar. This should be considered a karfif that's more than a beis hasayim, and it should be asar. What did Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua say? If the area that you planted was only a beis hasayim, that's the maximum it's allowed. But why? Even the rest of the space that you did not plant should be toughened to the space that you did plant, and therefore it should be considered to be one large space that's now a garden, and it should be asr. We'll finish off to the two dots here. So the Gemara changes this, and the Gemara says, Eli itmer hachi itmer. We have to change what Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua said. What did he say? Ha miyut shari. So the diak is that if you planted a miyut of this area, so then it's allowed. Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua. So Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua said, Lo yamadan ela de lehave beis hasayim. If the area that you planted was not a beis hasayim, avo beis hasayim, if the area that you planted was a beis hasayim, then aser. Then it's going to be aser. Why? Because then it's open to the rest of the area, and it all becomes tuffle to this area, and then it's going to be aser to carry there. Keman, who does this go according to? Kerabanan. This follows the opinion of Rabbanan, that Rabbanan say that from one chatzar to another chatzar you're not allowed to carry. And the same thing over here, from this area, outside of it, even in the area that you did not plant, you're not allowed to carry from to there. Rav Yirmiyah medifti masni lekula. Rav Yirmiyah medifti said what Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua said, and he says it lekula. Ha miyut shari. That in a case where only the miyut of this area was planted, it's allowed. Amar Rav Huna ben Rav Yeshua lo yamaran ela beis hasayim. You're only allowed to carry there if it's a beis hasayim. Aval yosem beis hasayim. If it was more than a beis hasayim, then it's aser. Keman ki Rab Shimon. Like we said before, it goes according to Rab Shimon that if it's more than a beis hasayim that you planted, then it's not going to be allowed to carry there, because the whole entire area becomes tuffle to this place and you can't carry there.